Oh, that's funny. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. What's going on? What's going on, Krishna? Evening, everyone. Evening. Daniel, what's going on? Listening at the gym right now? It's never a bad time. It's always a good time for the gym. Kill two birds with one stone. I can't blame you for that. I mean, every day is a grind. There's always something to do. Always something that you gotta do. Even when there's time to crunch, you find ways to do other things. Pretty much. What's going on, Uncle Philly? Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. I'll get started real quick. Probably be pretty much a short session tonight. I don't think there's that many alerts that went off tonight, so I'll keep it a little bit brief. I'll give you a quick update before I get into the alerts that went off today. Pretty much give you what I pretty much saw from the market today, what I'm anticipating for the rest of the week, rather so tomorrow, as you pretty much just want, some of you want the outlook, basically. But we had a nice follow through. I came on live here last night and I said that we had a nice little V-shaped recovery yesterday into the market close. And we basically wanted to see the follow through going into this morning and following the statements by what Powell was going to say, right? So we got those beautiful words that he pretty much said. We saw a little bit of the volatility in the market. We saw the Nasdaq pretty early in the morning start to jump. I think there was one point where Nasdaq futures were up about 50 points, and then we literally just regressed all of that to go down minus 40 on Nasdaq futures. And I was like, wow, that's almost a 100-point move we made from being green to going red just off of one comment that Powell said. So that was a little bit of early volatility in the morning that we got based upon the comments that he mentioned. And then we saw that acceleration. Therefore, after towards the end of his entire speech or comments, we saw futures really start to push. And that's when a lot of the names that we hadn't seen really make any kind of push recently, they really just started to just accelerate. And those are pretty much names that the RSI were pretty much just really just flattened. They were all below rather 40 to 30 at that point. And so I think the names that really just stood out to me that I can recall here was one was SE. SE was one literally ripped, made about a $12 move today. We saw MDB, that's also another one that stood out to me, and then PayPal. So those are the three that really stood out more so than all of them because those are names that we hadn't seen really make a move in quite some time, and more so SE for that matter, because they've really just been dead. And I can also throw away PayPal into that conversation as well, because PayPal has really been in that 180 range for quite some time, and we've now broken out of it, pushing north of 190. So it was definitely a good sign to see PayPal come alive. And so that's what we'll be watching here in the coming days if we're able to hold up this kind of momentum that we build off of today. But the only thing is that I will say that we're not necessarily in the clear just yet. We do have pretty much the most critical data coming out tomorrow morning, which all of the market's going to be watching. Now, I think from the broader market perspective, we're all expecting bad data tomorrow morning. It's just how bad is it really going to end up being? What's going on now, Lobo? So we're pretty much expecting that bad CPI data tomorrow. That's going to be key note for inflation. But how bad that number is going to be is pretty much going to reflect the market movement tomorrow. So that's why you pretty much hear everyone on live into the market close today. A lot of the guys are pretty much just cash because we don't want to get caught on the wrong side and depending upon how bad that data is tomorrow. And then later on in the week, of course, actually rather tomorrow also we do have more Fed speakers along with the rest of the week into the close. We do have on Thursday our normal job claim data that comes out, and then Friday is also another crucial data that comes out for retail. So we do have retail data on Friday morning as well. So it's quite a busy week still, and that's why I'm saying we're not necessarily in the clear just yet. Once we do get the data tomorrow, then I would seem a lot more comfortable in the market, pretty much the market forecast, in which we're maybe in a short-term clear zone with all eyes on earnings, because we do have bank earnings also kicking off on Friday. So once the CPI data is out tomorrow morning, we'll basically have a better idea maybe be able to hold more swing positions. For right now, you see we're a little bit more skeptic on holding overnight positions and the size that we go in with positions. So once we get that tomorrow, then we'll be pretty much clear for the short term here. About another week or so. We do also have OPEX week coming up next week, so that's another thing to look forward to as well. And then also Monday is also a holiday as well. So quite a bit of things going on, but that's pretty much my outlook here. It's just once we get that CPI data, I think it'll really just give you a more clear direction. If we end up continuing to bleed tomorrow, following that data in the morning, then you're likely gonna know that volatility is pretty much still around, in which you're gonna want to continue being light on your position size and overnight positions. If we pretty much continue to get momentum off of today's price action, then you're looking to see, okay, the markets are calming down now until the next thing that pretty much becomes the hurdle that we have to get over. All right. So that's what I wanted to give you guys pretty much the if and an about tomorrow's data. But getting into the alerts today, so I can give you pretty much a rundown. Actually, before I get into today's alerts, if you heard me last night, I pretty much mentioned that I had three alerts that I was going to be continuing to watch. One was Roku. If you actually remember, we had the Roku alerts that went off yesterday, and I actually removed it here. But we had the Roku 170 puts that went off for next week. We actually saw that was pretty much a failure for the most part. We saw the nice little $2 bounce and change that it had. I think it was up a little bit more during the day for the most part, as you see. But we ended up getting a nice little drop off of that high. But nonetheless, it ended up closing red on that unusual put for Roku. The other one was the Affirm whale alert that went off. If we remember that, they actually hit 85 calls on that one. And that was for quite a bit of time off. They gave themselves about 2 months in time on that. But intraday here, if you notice, we ended up peaking. Where was it? The high of today was about 83.60. So that was beautiful to see continuation out of that one. The other alert was also the AMD Super Fortuna beta that went off not once but twice yesterday. So actually yesterday and the day before. So that's something to keep in mind here. That was a beautiful one. I ended up tweeting about it as well because I made a $5 plus move off of the Super Fortuna. So that was also a banger along with the whale alert. And that's probably your two strongest alerts that you can really get alongside the other one that's pretty much hasn't gone off yet. But your strongest alerts that you're really looking for that we have that TFC offers, and I say the strongest because they've pretty much been the pretty much the biggest win rate as far is basically you're looking at the whale alert, you're looking at Super Fortuna, tested and beta, and then you're looking at the Oracle alerts, which is it's been a little bit they did a little bit of alteration on it. That's why you haven't seen it pretty much alert yet. But Oracle is also another one that you throw into that list. So those are your top three alerts that you always want to pay attention to: Super Fortuna, Oracle, and the whale alert. Those three are literally the I think the highest win rate pretty much overall that TFC offers. So that's why I say you definitely want to keep an eye on those. And that's why I say the Affirm one, this one just ripped from the bottom. That was your whale alert. And then you had the Super Fortuna alert, which was the AMD that ripped up about $5 plus today. So that was a beautiful one as well to keep an eye on both of those. And then the other one here, which I'm still having on my watch list only because I may lotto something on the earnings. But it was the BlackRock one. If you remember, we had puts that I think about 850 puts on this one. Actually, I still have it here. 840 puts for February 11th. I will depend upon that and think about it if I want to end up gambling on the earnings or not. So I'll see what I want to do about that, but we'll also see if this ends up playing out, and I'll probably be giving you guys a little bit reminder on it once I do see the price action. All right. But jumping into today's alerts, I'll start off with Twilio real quick. Twilio was one I saw this and I was like a little bit of a head scratcher because I was not expecting Twilio. I know that they were green pretty much on the day, so I was not necessarily expecting it, but it pretty much hit the criteria of everything that I pretty much like. So it will continue to stay on my radar, despite the fact that today's price action was nowhere in the stratosphere of what this alert was pretty much telling me. Because they did end up hitting puts, as you see, the stock is up $6 plus. The other thing is that they did go out of the money, which has caught my attention. They gave themselves quite a bit of time here going out to February 11th, so about 4 weeks or so in time. And then what I really liked was the amount of premiums that they dropped on this. They dropped about 262K in premium on out of the money puts. So that's what really what caught my attention. So I'll look forward to see if any volatility continues in the coming days that may end up being the trigger for this to end up paying out. And this is one where I'll drop it on my watch list. As you see that I have BlackRock still on there, and I still have a firm on there to continue up to 85. I'll add this to my watch list to see in the coming days. So once I know, okay, the market's starting to go red, volatility is starting to pick up, this may be one that I want to end up paying attention to. All right. So we'll look out for that one. The other one that I saw was Google. These alerts also came out. This one also was another of a pretty much a little bit of a head scratcher also because it was puts. So it looks like they're looking for a little bit of volatility. So we'll see what this one ends up materializing as well. But they did hit this week. They did go also uh, out of the money as well. So 27.55, which would pretty much indicate that we're going to be somewhat red for tech within these coming days before the end of the week. Maybe it's a bet pretty much on CPI that tech is going to end up bleeding following tomorrow's data. Kind of a question mark for me still right now at this moment. So I'll have to also add this one to the watch list here, see what they end up doing. But they literally hit my criteria in terms of being out of the money, the premium 100K plus, and then same week expiration. So this is one that I'll add to the watch list. And then at the same time, right before this Google alert came out, they also hit Google as well. But this one was a call alert. And this really looked like it was more so of a scalp because they literally just went at the money basically. But they went to February 4th expiration. But this pretty much paid intraday here. It was pretty much at the money, so you literally ended up being a scalp. You got a quick 8 to 10% out of this pretty instantly because it was basically right at the money. And Google pretty much one candle will literally print out about $4 to $5. All right, so this was a pretty much a nice little scalp opportunity you had on this one. It did end up paying as well, but they literally hit everything I think you wanted to see was pretty much at the money, not necessarily in the money. They hit February 4th, but the amount of premium that they dropped was insanely crazy. All right, so that was a nice little scalper there. The other one was Amazon. They hit pretty much the big boys today for the most part, some high flying names. This one was Amazon that they ended up hitting. They did the 3350 calls. We didn't quite get there today, so they're looking to see if, I guess, following the CPI data tomorrow, that the market builds on momentum. Tech continues to build momentum, which is pretty much the opposite of what that Google unusual put is. So a little bit on the opposite ends here in tech in terms of Amazon call and then Google puts same week, the same week expiration. So that's what's a little bit more of a mind bottle, and it looks like they're primarily like a what you would say is like an earnings bet. This is more so of a gamble following the data tomorrow that they're looking for either direction. The only other thing that crossed my mind was that maybe they were looking to take some early profits, but when I looked at this one on Amazon, they pretty much bought the top. So if you see that little black line at the top here, they basically bought the top. And so I would anticipate that they're still holding this one. Granted, they already bought so far out of the money. They bought same week expiration and they did drop 100K plus. So I would anticipate that they're still holding this. You got a little bit of a consolidation towards the close. And they're looking for that next leg higher going into tomorrow for momentum to build. All right. So this is one that you keep an eye on as well. So it has not paid out as of yet. The other one was Jazz. I heard someone say that they were up quite a bit on this one once the alert came out. I think it was actually Dan that took that Nimbus right away. I know that he loves Nimbus. He took this one and he was instantly up about 18 to 22% when I heard him mention it on live. So this was a Jazz Pharmaceuticals. It's a biotech company. Felt a little bit safe in terms of when I saw the overall chart on a larger scale, but they did go out of the money. The only caution part was that they went pretty far expiration. They went out to March 18th, which made me think that there's maybe a catalyst that's coming in play here, not necessarily just a scalp opportunity. So despite the fact that you did have an opportunity to scalp this one, it looks like they're looking to play some kind of catalyst in the coming days, in the coming weeks here. So that was the only thing. But I think what really made a lot of people go in this one blindly was the 100% TFC score. It's very rare that you get a 100% TFC score. So a lot of people end up liking to take those, and they take it, even if they get a quick 8 to 10%, they will take that opportunity, right? But you liked it anyways. I think it literally hit all the criteria because despite the fact that the expiration being so far out, that TFC score made up for it. They literally hit 100 plus K in premium. One thing I love, and they also went out of the money. So it hit my criteria based on the fact that not despite the expiration date, that it was 100% TFC score. So it definitely gave you that confidence in taking that trade. All right. The other one was Nvidia, and Nvidia seems to be one that usually ends up coming out on alerts quite often. But we had Nvidia 280 calls. So this one they actually peaked, but the problem is that they ended up buying it at the top. That was the only problem. So I'm assuming that they ended up maybe either averaging down or they literally just hit a stop loss. That was my only concern because they basically bought the top intraday here. So that was my concern about this one. I think they were pretty much hoping to get another leg higher and break that high. It just didn't happen. So they ended up pretty much just buying the high of the day, and they literally probably hit their stop loss. But from the looks of it, it hit all the criteria that I particularly like. They got out of the money, or I should say at the money, basically, because it was pretty much only a few cents out. They went out at the money. They went same week expiration, 100 plus K in premium, and the TFC score was 60 plus percent, which I prefer. All right, so it hit the criteria, but unfortunately, this one it looks like they were a little too late in executing this trade because the rip had already been done, and they basically just bought the top. So not one that I particularly would have ended up holding. I probably would have hit the stop loss pretty quickly, just given the fact that they ended up getting in so late and the stock was already up so much at that point in the day. So a little bit more of a caution one. But I did like NVIDIA alert following the fact that we had the AMD alert right before it, because AMD was off of Super Fortuna like we were mentioning, right? We had the Super Fortuna pretty much go off. Then we had pretty much back-to-back Super Fortuna betas. Then we ended up having this morning, we had the Rapids that came out pretty quickly, followed by the Unusual. So that felt like four alerts on just one ticker. And at one point of the day, this was up about $6. So you had ample amount of opportunity to get an AMD. I think everyone should have gotten at least 8 to 10% in some way. Pretty much you could have bought literally anywhere up in the morning, and you had an opportunity to make bank by lunchtime. Even if you bought yesterday, you still had an opportunity. So I think this one was just one that if you ended up missing out, you missed out. But you had more than one opportunity to get in on this trade. And if you didn't, then unfortunately, you pretty much look for the next opportunity. And don't pretty much just sink your head on it. Damn, I missed that. You just move on to the next trade. But this one actually caught my eye when I saw this unusual come out. Because if you notice, they went out of the money. But look how much premium they dropped on that, 528K. That's usually something I usually like to pay attention to. Despite wanting out of the money at same week expiration, I want to see how much premium you're dropping. This was definitely a high confidence type of play when they dropped over 500K in premium. So just a side note on that. And the last alert was the GME alert, which I refuse to really touch this one. But they did get a nice little trade on this one, a nice little scalper. For those of you that maybe took this alert, they did go out of the money. Well, I should say at the money again. 131 strike. They did get February 4th expiration, a few weeks out, and then 100 plus K in premium. If you notice the little black line, you see they got in on that massive pullback off of the highs of the day, but they had an opportunity to scalp and get profits here at 133, and that strike would have closed in the money. So it was a beautiful little scalper. I'm just not one to really trust GameStop and AMC anymore. The memes to me have are not trading the same. They're not alive anymore. So I pretty much try to stay away, and it's all about your comfort level. Just like you're not gonna take all the alerts, you pretty much go with the tickers that you know end up working best for you. So for some, they may say that, you know what, I don't like to take Amazon alerts, TFC alerts, because they end up costing me too much, or they don't end up working for me in particular. That's fine, right? But you have to find out what works for you. I think for the most part, the best alerts that usually come out hands down overall between Super Fortuna, TFC scores, all of them, I think it's been AMD. I think that's probably the highest win rate that we have as far as the alerts has been AMD, if I'm not mistaken. That literally almost always pays. That's something maybe you want to keep in the back of your mind when you see an AMD alert, because that's why I say you want to be selective in the names that you end up trading. The same way is that you want to find those names that you have off of the alerts that end up working for you more times than not, right? You don't want to necessarily always try and go for a blind ticker like GME. I particularly know that I don't like to trade GME. Then I just pretty much move on to the next one, right? So trading is also about your comfort level, so that's why I'm just pretty much explaining that You have to go off of what you feel comfortable and what takers you feel more comfortable with in terms of price action. I know that a lot of people don't like trading Amazon because one wick will literally cost you about 40% of your position size. So that's one that I know a lot of people don't like. And then Google personally, even though I like Google the stock, I don't like trading Google because of how volatile it is. I literally get in and I think the volatility literally destroys you within a matter of seconds after your execution of a trade. That's literally how bad it is trading Google. And I think that almost goes for Shop also. It's just the way the bid ask is, you end up getting destroyed by just about a $2 move. It literally destroys your premiums. So that's just something, everyone is very selective. And I'm pretty much sure you've heard the guys on live pretty much say they don't trade certain tickers, or they have like a blacklist. And I think some of them actually don't even trade Boeing. And I'm sure everyone in chat here also probably feels the same way. You don't like to trade Boeing, but then guess what? You have days like today where Boeing literally just ripped, and you had Avery talking about Boeing pretty much all day, and that was about a $7 to $8 rip right there. So I know that he's actually watching Boeing tomorrow also. Just keep that on the back of your mind also. I would not be surprised if Avery ends up talking about Boeing again tomorrow, because I believe we're watching Boeing towards 221, 222 if I'm not mistaken. So it might be another casual move again for Boeing. I know banks are going to be on high watch again tomorrow. So continue to watch the banks. But bigger picture is, we'll see what the tech sector does as a whole, pretty much following the CPI data. Someone mentioned to look at Microsoft. I'll just take a quick peek before I close out real quick. I don't think there's anything that I'm pretty much too pleased with to look at. But if I look at the daily real quick, um, all right. So here's one thing that I noticed right off the bat, and I actually thought I had it charted before. I guess I don't, but and I thought I actually did have this charted, but I didn't. And I probably can't chart it off the daily because of the 4 hour. Probably head off the 4 hour. Let's see, real quick. Here we go. That's what lined up. All right, so here's what you ended up having with AMD. You basically had a channel. So if you go with the peaks and you go with the bottom support line that I just ended up drawing, and I'm just trying to find the very top, more or less, just to give you a defined, better image from a far out perspective. If you see, you basically traded within a sideways channel, right? So what you ended up having was that once we had all that volatility these past few days here, you saw that we broke the support level. Once we broke that support level, you were to find the next support level, which you see is the orange line outline basically. That was our prior consolidation level. As you see, we had that little descending broadening action with the orange line being the top resistance from prior. That's where you ended up wicking down towards. But you ended up having a nice little recovery. Now, the factor that I have, and this is where my caution pretty much comes in, is that we can see a nice little move up towards 318, but then now that would end up acting as your resistance for this breakdown. Because now that you've broken support, now this is going to end up acting as resistance. So you'll likely end up hitting resistance right around 318 here, and that'll be where we could possibly end up breaking down, or we get more consolidation towards the right before we can make another leg right back up. So that's my caution right now. To me, right now, your top is 318. That's where you want to be cautioned. That's your hard resistance. And that's where you can end up reversing right back down to the downside. All right. So that's what I will caution you about with that one. Is 318 is where your resistance is as you broke down from the channel that went pretty much sideways. All right. So, and then you also do have another gap fill here down below. So that's something that, if you're looking to maybe play the downside, be aware that you do also have a gap fill as well to the downside here. Below 297.83, you're going to have a gap fill. So if volatility maybe kicks in tomorrow following that data, that's something maybe you want to target within the coming days here, because that may end up being a trigger for that like in that next leg down. All right, it'll probably be aiming towards that gap fill below. All right, but other than that, I'll leave it there tonight, guys. We'll see again what the data brings tomorrow. If we build more momentum off of today's price action, it's pretty much hard to say where we're going. I mean, I would expect that we're going to build off of momentum given the price action between yesterday and today. The only thing that I didn't like is that, and which is where I'm pretty much in, I want to say in limbo right now, is that I'm trying to find out whether The price action, all that volatility that we've had already, pretty much prices in bad CPI data that we get tomorrow morning? Or are we going to maybe get a blindsided action here where we get bad data and the market was not expecting it, per se, as bad as it's going to be? So that's the only question mark that I have in terms of the data coming out tomorrow. I don't think anybody really knows the definitive answer, per se. But given the fact that we didn't get like an end of day sell off in anticipation of the data, it looks like we pretty much just gotta run up straight into the data, and maybe we end up getting blindsided by whatever the result is gonna end up being. So that's just something to just keep on the back of your mind. But we'll know before the market opens. The data is gonna come out pretty early. If I'm not mistaken, it's out about 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So it'll be out about an hour before market opens. So we'll see what the market already does before open, and then we'll be able to basically give you a better idea come market hours during live, and we'll be able to give you an idea of what the trend is. Maybe if there's going to be a bounce or any kind of reversal that we end up seeing as well. All right. But I'll leave you guys with that. You guys have a good night, and I will see you guys first thing on live tomorrow morning. All right.